And thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love CVille Show. It's a pleasure to connect with you through the I Love CVille Network. This morning's talk show, The Jerry and Jerry Show, featured UVA football legend Matt Schaub as we dissected some of the challenges of Tony Elliott's football program. Listen to that interview wherever you get your social media and podcasting content. Jerry Ratcliffe, the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer, on Absolute Point. I would imagine today's show is going to follow suit. Our guest is a name that is known in the Central Virginia, Albemarle County, and Charlottesville communities. John Vermillion, the president of Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, live and in studio. His business, Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, in operation for 60 consecutive years, ladies and gentlemen. That right there, a milestone of significant proportions. A business founded by his father, a legacy continued by John since the wee age of, but being about knee height at Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, and now a torch that's being passed to his two sons, including a man, Andrew Vermillion, who I've had the pleasure of getting to know over the last month or so. Judah Wickhauer behind the camera. We call him the Elmer's glue of the team, the Elmer's glue of the network. Judah, if you could go to the studio camera and then a two-shot as we welcome today's featured guest, the 2023 Chamber of Commerce Small Business Person of the Year, John Vermillion. Good afternoon, John. Thank you kindly for joining us.
Jerry, thank you for having me today.
It's an absolute pleasure. For the viewers and listeners that do not know John Vermillion, the man, introduce yourself to them, please, sir.
I am a lifelong resident of Albemarle County. The business, we've sort of split our time. The business is in the city of Charlottesville, but myself and my sisters and brother grew up in Albemarle County, product of Albemarle County Public Schools. Graduated 1983 from Albemarle High School. Worked in the business, I remember when I was really small and going into the office with my dad and, poking around the warehouse. That's when we were located on Water Street. That's a long time ago. Let's see. I've been doing it for 40 years as a career. I will admit that I turned 60 years old in March. And so the business and I were born the same year, although I'm about 6 months older than the business.
Wow.
How we ended up in Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, well, I need to give some credit to my mother as well. Jerry said, started by my father. Well, my mother was very much a driving factor in starting the business. They were originally from Richmond. You touched upon my grandfather he had a contract janitorial cleaning business and sold cleaning supplies as well in Richmond. That was back in the 50s. And my dad, when he got out of the Air Force, he was in the Air Force, went to work for his dad at the time and quickly realized that this was a career path. The neat thing about what we do is it's a business of necessities. And I remember my dad telling me, saying, they wanted to go into business. My mom saying this as well. And what was a business that was resistant to recession, resistant to downturns, and that was selling cleaning supplies because I guess my mother had done some research that back in the Depression days that similar businesses to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply remained in business because, let's face it, everybody has to have toilet paper, hand towels, facial tissue, and those are the core types of products that we started out selling. We've morphed into selling lots of other things, but all of them still are essentials to health and well-being for humanity.
Your son, Andrew Vermillion, giving you some props right now in the program. Logan Wells-Clalo watching the show. Vanessa Parkhill watching the program in Earlysville. Viewers and listeners, if you have questions for John or if you want to shape the conversation, put your comments in the feed and we will relay them live on air. 60 years of consecutive business. Put that in perspective for the viewers and listeners. And it's a show that talks about real life. So it's trials and tribulations of 60 years of running a family business, John.
You know, I'm rather humbled by it, first of all, and the other thing too is like, where has the time gone? It's been quite amazing as far as just how long it's been, but it doesn't feel that way. My customers leave me. I enjoy my customers, my wonderful people. Love interacting with them. Trials and tribulations. Well, it's a small business, and we've chosen to remain a small business. We've had similar businesses in the past that have come and gone. They made choices to become larger and try to cover a larger footprint. We never did that. We were always, Charlottesville, Albemarle, Central Virginia. That's our home. That's where our customers are. That's where we work best. Trying to sell product to commercial customers in Richmond all around the state, that's just a good way to lose money. And so we don't do that. We try not to do that. It's hard to find help. But it's hard to be profitable as well these days and times. Expenses and costs are just as any, just your family. But just imagine a small business. Our insurance costs are through the roof. Our health insurance costs are through the roof. Our product costs continually go up. We are a small business, so the buying power is limited as far as that's concerned. However, we have a lot of long-term vendors that we've dealt with for years and years. Our product lines are established. I think our reputation, I've tried very hard to protect our reputation, speaks for itself. One thing I've always preached about to my boys as well as to anybody worse, I do not want to get a reputation of overselling somebody. We try to listen to what our customers are asking for, what their problems are, and to resolve that in a economical way. So that's another. I don't think we've ever had a reputation of being overselling people. Let's see. What was another part of that question?
Comments are coming in quickly for you. You're a popular guy. Janice Boyce Trevelyan, thank you for 10 years of clean pool chlorine prices. And she highlights our prices coming down maybe this year for chlorine. We'll talk about that. Bill McChesney says, here's a historical question. Did you all buy the building from the Wingfields, DBA, the economy cleaners? We'll talk about that. You got a lot of stuff that's coming in, including what is the future of East High Street, as we highlighted for you already. I have some questions for you before I get to the viewers and listeners, and put them in the feed if you could. Talk to us about Charlottesville and running a business prior to COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID. As a business owner myself, 16 years, almost 17 years in May as a business owner for us. So we're about 16 and a half, I guess you would call it. Running the business before COVID, things were done a certain way. During COVID, in some ways we were fortunate because we were creating content on phones while people were sitting at their houses because they were told by the government to stay home. We saw the business really pick up a lot during COVID because of that. And then post-COVID, we were able to maintain that momentum that was established during the pandemic. I ask our guests that are small business owners that question often. Can you give us the flip book of what you do for a living pre, during, and post the pandemic?
Oh, wow. But I want to, economy cleaners, I had forgotten that. I'm going to remember, I was pretty young. In 1974, I was 10. But I had forgotten it. But yes, it was the Wingfields. So yes, I remember that. And Pre-COVID, we've gone along. Our biggest customer, I would say, pre-COVID was probably the University of Virginia, which a lot of small businesses in Charlottesville back in that day, when Leonard Sandridge was still there, was still very much community-oriented, community-minded, and we had a great relationship with a lot of the departments at the university. So that was, probably the big driver of our business then. The other was just the more commercial space. So selling our products and delivering. We've always had free delivery for the local area. We still have free delivery. So, we're very, making our deliveries to local businesses, hotel, motel trade, again, as well as the university. So that was all, pretty steady. Then I remember pre-COVID is when the rise of Amazon came along. And I remember losing my first sale to Amazon. And I didn't really know what it was, to be quite honest with you. And I had a customer as a pool piece of equipment for swimming pools, pool filter, and our cost from our vendors were such and such, and we based our margin on that. Quoted a price, which was a fair price, what we were selling that piece of equipment for in the day, and then that was early days of not early days, but cell phones were coming. It was Wi-Fi enabled cell phones. So basically, a customer had brought up this Amazon page, found the identical product that I was selling for less than I paid for it, and it kind of left me a little shaken. Needless to say, I lost that sale. I didn't really know what to say, and then that's when the reality of wow, it's becoming really hard to be a small business and be competitive. Obviously, we're still here. That was probably at least 15 years ago, 12, 15 years ago would be my guess. And I do also remember when Sam's Club opened. Everybody was saying, oh my goodness, Sam's Club is going to put us out of business. Well, it didn't. So we're still here. So we're doing something right. Unless, immediately got on the phone with vendors and saying, what are you doing here? Well, I just lost the sale, yada, yada, yada. Well, it took all the wholesale distribution network by, they were all caught off guard as well. So it took some time for that to shake out. Let's just say I don't sell as much hard goods in terms of equipment these days. We still sell a lot of it, don't get me wrong, but there's just not a lot of money in that. So I'm not in the business of trading dollars. I can't in this community, and what it costs to be in this community, I can't do that. So we, focus more on service, focus more on how to use the product, which we always did, but this just really became that much more important to be very knowledgeable and I call it holding hands. That might be insulting, but really hand-holding our customers, because when somebody comes to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, they have an immediate need, be it for their pool, be it for mold that's growing, be it for organic accidents, fecal matter, things like that. They're coming to me because they have a problem they need to take care of right away. And so it takes time. It takes a lot of time to tell folks how to properly, use the products so they're not wasteful, that sort of thing. So that's really what we've concentrated on. Now, with that said, you can't beat them, join them. We have an Amazon page now that is knocked me over with a feather. It's coming up on a year. It was the idea of a son, business slumping. This is sort of after COVID, business. I'll come back to COVID time. It was very interesting, but after COVID, our business dropped off precipitously, and we need to, what are we going to do? Well, I can't beat them, join them. So my son Andrew said, well, let's start a Amazon page, and I said, have at it, and I remember he put a few items up, opened the Amazon page. It was a Thursday, And I'm going through it, and I said, well, this is great, wonderful, but nobody's ever going to find us. How are they going to find us? And could have knocked me over with a feather. That Saturday, we had our first sale, Amazon sale, and it's just, increased ever since. And it's like, wow, it's something to this. And so our Amazon sales have really grown. So that's been not enough, but it certainly has given encouragement. COVID times. Well, so again, going back to what I mentioned about being a business of necessity. Oh my gosh, we have this virus that has come out that is deadly, and you can get it from touching things. This was before they realized it was more airborne, but it was just a lot of fear. Everybody ran out of hand sanitizers, hand soaps, the things that people were looking for immediately. We sold out of hand sanitizer in 3 days. People were looking and saying, I don't care what it is, what the packaging was. We sold a lot of stuff, sold stuff that needed to go. And then also disinfectants and hospital-grade disinfectants and proper methods of using the disinfectants. There was so much misinformation that came out on proper touch surface sanitizing and disinfecting. There was a lot of stuff being sold on the internet, very expensive applicators, ionizing applicators or atomizing applicators and things like that. And it's just like, thousands of dollars people were spending on these things, and they were snake oil. So a pump-up sprayer with properly mixed product for $50 versus a $2,000 ionized, fancy thing that's made in China. That's not even coating the surfaces properly. So anyway, I'm getting a little deep in the weeds there. I mean to do that, but it just pointed out people were scared. So it worked out. They came to us. We sold a lot of product, and then everybody ran out of toilet paper, which was the most amazing thing that I remember. Toilet paper and paper towels. Well, we had it. Now, my towel and tissue business is institutional, so I have cases of 80 rolls to a case or so, but people had to have it, and we were at a competitive price. Never always maintained our normal margin on these necessities. And I remember in the height of COVID, it was the March of that year, and toilet paper had run out, and you were supposed to have 6 foot distance from people. Well, we had people in the store. People were standing
shoulder
on top
to shoulder,
shoulder to shoulder, and we were selling product and as fast as we could. So that was that hysteria certainly calmed down. It had to calm down, but being the pool business really took off during COVID. Again, people were stuck at home. How we're going to entertain the kids. So our pool business increased, which pool business has been a very bright spot in our business, and I enjoy the pool business. People were buying above ground pools, Intech pools, Walmart pools, whatever, but it's all water, and water needs to be treated, and a lot of people don't understand just how vital it is to make sure water is treated and sanitized, just to contain illness there.
Comments coming in quickly. John Blair watching the program. He's loving the interview, and he's giving you some props. He says you're providing valuable insight for the community. Ray Cadell watching the program and says Charlottesville Sanitary Supply absolutely sells knowledge and service. John provides unbelievable service for those of us that own swimming pools in the community. Carly Wagner's got a question that we're going to get to. The show's airing on 15 social media channels at once. And Carly wants to know on the program, can John talk about what type of pool services they offer, openings, closings, and water testing? We'll get to that in a matter of moments. Georgia Gilmer, friend of the program, Gigi, says Charlottesville Sanitary Supply was awesome during the pandemic, especially for delivery. She says, I love that I run into folks I've known forever but don't see on a regular basis at CSS. John has never steered me wrong on products. My claim to fame is having the best smelling porta potty on a construction site, thanks to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. That's from Gigi right there. You touched on this, and I have so much I want to cover on the interview because it's not every day I get to sit across from someone born and raised in the community that has 60 years of institutional knowledge, that is in a line of work, small business ownership, that I am extremely passionate about. Dave Fafara, watching the program, says this man is the absolute best in town in Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. So I have a Christmas list, a good Christmas list of questions for you, very long. You mentioned UVA. It's a very pointed question for you. You highlighted Leonard Sandridge, the former president. The University of Virginia as a steward for the community, as a steward for small business. How have you seen the University of Virginia evolve, change as a champion of small business locally? Do they still offer the same support and momentum for small business that, say, happened under former President Sandridge's watch, now under current President Ryan's watch, or have things changed? That's a very straightforward question for you there, John.
Things have changed.
Yeah.
Taking my Charlottesville Sanitary Supply hat off and just being my personal John Vermillion from the community all my life. As much as I would like to say the university is a great incubator for small business, they may be for some types of businesses, but for mine, I would say no. I'm a type of business that relies on selling and distributing products. We sell products. We have to sell. We have to have sell those products at a certain margin to be able to survive and stay in business. Back in the day, we could do that with the university. They appreciated the service that we had, the ability to quickly get product to them, find specialty product, do these types of things. Well, something happened. Again, we noticed it. I noticed it more after Mr. Sandridge retired. It was a customer of mine. They had a swimming pool, and wonderful, wonderful people. And it went from being sort of community oriented to working with us to what's your price, and then. That was always a factor, mind you. You had to be competitive. You had to be, but it got to the point where people that I worked with at the university who have long since retired got fed up with it. And that was a lot of that caused them to retire because they were being pushed to go to national contracts, doing business with large distribution companies. Let's face it, there are a lot of places that have become my competitors now. Cintas, of course, Amazon, and there's nothing that can't be found or had cheaper than what I can sell it for on the internet if you try to find it. Again, it goes back to the service, but yeah, that's really, in my opinion. I just ended up having to wash my hands from them because it just became very frustrating. You go and you talk to a purchasing agent, and then they put up a lot of hurdles as well for small business. Everything was being pushed to their, and this is the state too, and it's gotten a little bit better. But their EVA system, their online portals, well, that required very expensive. Software systems to be able to manage that type of thing, and having online catalogs devoted completely to them. Well, small business it was unaffordable. But if you didn't have that, or if you didn't play by that rule, sorry, we can't do business with you.
I've heard this from a lot of small business owners in the community. That it's become a nickel and dime bottom line business for the university.
Well, I'm also going to throw in the local governments in there too. Albemarle County is just as bad. The school systems are just as bad. I probably ought to keep my mouth shut. But trying to do business is just very, very difficult to try to do profitable business. when they come with all these strings attached that run your cost up. Now, a big company like Grainger or like that, I mean, they have attorneys on staff. They have IT departments. They have all, that's just built into what they do. Little Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, that's me.
Right. So what you're saying is resonating with other small business owners. Stephanie Wells Rhodes of the Interstate Pest and Service Company family says, we saw the exact same thing at Interstate Pest Control. After years and years of service, they then came back to us and wanted us to clean up the messes for other people, that they started nickeling and diming their family business as well. I have a correction here, and I have tremendous respect for the text message I just received from Albemarle Commonwealth's attorney Jim Hingley. He says, Jerry, Leonard Sandridge was the vice president, not the president of the university. You misspoke there. I appreciate that, Jim Hingley, for holding me accountable. I very much appreciate you. We got to get you back on the program. I've heard that from a lot of people, of some of the largest stakeholders in the community, local government, the University of Virginia, the schools, not prioritizing or positioning our institutional brands and businesses at the top of their needs or their ask. I attribute it to this. I've talked about this on previous shows. We've talked about this off air. I'm very curious to see your perspective on this. I can tell he already knows where I'm going here. There's been a significant demographic change to Charlottesville and Albemarle County. Mm-hmm. That demographic change was amplified because of COVID, the pandemic, hybrid and remote work. Mm-hmm. We now see folks in the Charlottesville and Albemarle community that are new to the community. I'm talking 4 or 5 years since COVID, that have significant amounts of earning power and potential. They're working through an internet service provider in the basement or at the house. And they're working for a firm or a business in D.C., somewhere in the Northeast, Manhattan, Boston, Philadelphia, you name it. I see this everywhere. And they're spending their money not necessarily within the community, but wherever fits their household budget the most. I've been in this community for 24 years. And what I found so compelling of the community was this shop local, buy local. Even if it was a little bit more, you knew that this was going to come back to you in some way. I love that aspect. We still embody that spending habit, if you may. I think some of that was lost because of the COVID and the pandemic, with the demographic changes that we've seen in Central Virginia with transplants, if you may, to the area. It's starting to sound like my father here in a lot of ways. It's crazy. Now a father of two. I want to throw all this to you. I can't wait to hear your answer on this topic.
Well, that's true. That's very true. I mean, we that's what has, sort of a little bit of the pickle we're in now, is that all the folks left their office buildings and left their offices and went home to work, which, that's great. We hit our retail business boomed. But once again, that wave went away, then our commercial business started to suffer. And then keep on top, we still had all these other competitors in the market and people working at home. Well, it's kind of a boon for some management, because they were able to shift all their fixed cost of maintaining office space onto the individuals when they're at home, i.e. materials and supplies for the buildings, as well as their electrical costs and things like that. They shed millions and millions of dollars of expense just by doing that. But a lot of people they're still working at home, and you get the the university is attracted, which change is inevitable. Change is great. So Charlottesville has always been transient, always. That's the nature of the university being here. But you're right. Here in the last few years since COVID, there's a lot of wealth that has moved in that, rightly or wrongly, it's just what it is, doesn't necessarily support the local communities or the local businesses. And I get it. I mean, being able to go online and order and have delivered to you, the next day by Amazon, or that's just they're the big one out there, so they come to mind. But there's so many operations that do that and do it efficiently and do it cheaper. So I get it. It's a convenience. Getting in the car and coming down to High Street to buy a vacuum cleaner, higher quality, much better made product from me versus buying a throwaway Dyson or something like that online. It's convenience. How do we deal with that? Well, we just double down on what we do best and keep trying to, that's why one of the reasons I'm sitting here today, get the word out, let people know, hey, this is what we do. You have a problem, we're there to fix it. Can you refresh the question for me again a little bit, please?
This is the challenge so a lot of folks that watch the program know this. We offer consultation to businesses that are looking to rebound or continue growing market share. A lot of our clients are watching right now. Some of them are offering comments. And one of the challenges I'm hearing, common denominators, for all the folks I sit across, not on a talk show, but on that desk over there, is I'm not seeing the same commitment to supporting the iconic institutional businesses that have made the community what it is today post-COVID. And often the folks that are in your shoes, the leaders, the C-suite, the presidents of the operation are saying, we are not just competing against the internet and not just competing in price wars, but we're competing against a customer base that's changed from the Charlottesville we know it of yesteryear.
Oh, that's absolutely true. I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, just the age demographic of my customer base is like me. We're all getting older, and I'm thankful for them. I have lots and lots of loyal customers that are really wonderful. But young families, I see it more with pool products and pool supplies because that gets pretty technical. But in terms of commodities, not so much. Like I said, unless there's a specific need that somebody, I'm talking about a homeowner, specific need that they're looking for something to clean up after pets or that sort of thing, which is very specific. But the institutional buyer, which was for years our bread and butter, that's what got us through the winter, was our institutional buyers. Well, all the personnel has changed, and one, that whole market has changed because one, it's just, a lot of it's just not even there anymore. But two, again, going back to Charlottesville, the economic engine that drives Charlottesville is the University of Virginia. And if the University of Virginia and the people they have coming in there they're just coming in, they're not from here, they're coming in, they're buying a home, they work there. Not everybody, mind you, but a big portion of it. They have no ties to the community. And how do we get to them? Traditional advertising has stopped working. So that's the challenge is getting to them because their needs are still the same. Again, I'm in a business of necessities. People have to have, what I said. At some point in everybody's life, they have to buy something that I sell, but it's getting that word to those folks and finding those folks. So that's more online retailing. But I bring it back to there's still a lot of bricks and mortar here that needs to be cared for in this town. These buildings aren't going anywhere. They're still here. So you have your property management companies, you have the university, the school systems, the governments, and so forth. I think they can step it up.
I agree 100%.
I think it's a mind shift. It needs to get away from what's your price or what's the bottom line versus supporting the community, keeping the community alive.
I'll highlight Neil Williamson watching the program, the president of the Free Enterprise Forum. You have a city councilor and a couple of board of supervisors watching you right now. John is the 2023 Chamber of Commerce Small Business Person of the Year. He is as fit to answer this question as anyone I know. His family business, 60 consecutive years. He's been working in the business 40 years. Is it easier to do business now in Charlottesville and Albemarle County today than it was, say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago? If you could break that down, and us viewers and listeners, we will listen to learn from you here, John.
I don't want to sound like I'm whining, because I'm not. But yeah, it's small business, I think. And I was talking to my CPA just the other day. I had to call him to talk about something, and he made the comment to me. He's a little bit younger than I am, but he made the comment to me. He said, John, everything is just so much harder now. It's so much harder to talk to people. It's so much harder to get information you need. Everything is just so hard. And I said, Charles, I agree. I agree. And it's exhausting. It becomes exhausting when you have to work so hard to get basic information that 10 years ago was there, easy to get. So yeah, it's definitely harder today. I'm very optimistic. Don't get me wrong. I've always tried to be optimistic and keep my mind.
I mean, you're an entrepreneur. You have to be optimistic in a lot of ways. Entrepreneurs, I'm the same way. We're glasses half full type of people, because if we weren't, we would never get into this line of work. We would never get into the line of work of running businesses, because if you're not, you're just going to drive yourself crazy.
Well, yeah. Now, I will say, and we're doing Charlottesville Sanitary Supply is doing fine, and will continue to do fine. But the revenue is not the same as it was even 5 years ago. So, but we've cut costs and make things work. I mean, if you come to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, for those folks that have not been in my business, if you want a old 1974 experience, come to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, because that's what we are the same today as we basically were when we moved there in '74. Now our technology has changed, obviously, and the products have changed and so forth. But I'm not really sure where I was going.
No, you're good. Questions are coming in quickly. Susan Nardi watching the program.
Oh my goodness, Susan.
She says, "I would give anything to live near you to pick your brain over stuff that comes up again, John." Muncie, is it Webby?
Muncie Weeby. Hi, Muncie.
Caleb Hall, Mike Ehlers watching the program right now. Viewers and listeners, we're chatting with John Vermillion, the president of Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. William McKenzie. UVA changed a lot with outsourcing a lot of their stuff, a lot of in-house services in the 80s and 90s. Aramark and other departments followed without the same success. Buildings and grounds, now facilities management, had to do a turnaround on some of these changes. A lot of it I'm going to point to, and I hear this not just from John, I hear this from dozens of clients that are highlighting the commitment from the university and from local stakeholders like frankly speaking, and this is me talking, not John, Charlottesville City and Albemarle County, that have made running a business in this community entirely more challenging. I've heard from clients who've chosen to move operations to more welcoming counties or jurisdictions like Nelson and Louisa counties, that are orange counties, that are legitimately rolling out the red carpet with tax breaks and municipality advantages that aren't here. And I question why that is the case. Why are we so almost tripping over ourselves, if you may? Because what makes, I'll get out of your way here. What makes Charlottesville so charming, and why my wife and I have chosen to raise our two boys here. I've been here 24 years. What makes Charlottesville charming is the downtown mall, is going to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, is going to the Blue Moon Diner that's closing over Thanksgiving, Mel's Cafe that closed, going to businesses like, you've highlighted this in the past, the Aberdeen Barn, where Angela knows your name and the waiters are the same. And if we start losing that charm and that nostalgia, then we become Fredericksburg in Northern Virginia. And we become every main street in America. And that would impact quality of life tremendously. Anyway, I see the wheels turning. Anywhere you want to go on any of this conversation?
Well, again, going back to being a hopeless optimist, the community, there's so many wonderful people in this community who are so generous with their time and with their money. I feel, we just have to be optimistic, and we just have to work within what we have and try to expand upon being good to one another, being kind, and supporting our community. Because if we don't, we will become just another suburb of Washington, D.C. or so forth. It's kind of coming that way now because it's the affordability of just being in this community. I don't know what the answer is to that, Jerry. I don't. I've seen a lot of changes. The home I live in, which I've lived in for 35 years, I built it. I built that home myself, general contracted. I have $175,000 in that house that I built myself on a 2-acre lot, less than a mile and a half from the city limits of Charlottesville. There is no way in the world I could afford to buy the house I live in now. There's no way, and that saddens me, my children, your children. You're not going to be able to stay in this community unless something happens. So we have to support the local people, the local community, our charitable organizations, our volunteer fire companies, because they are the what hold the community together.
Talk to us about Stony Point Fire Department. Wait till you see this guy is passionate about this.
Well, for those that know me, know where I live now is basically the same place that I grew up, on Stony Point Road. And back in the 70s, I think it was 1976, Stony Point Volunteer Fire Company was being formed. And then, the northeast part of the county, there was no fire coverage there. That was being covered by East Rivanna at the time, which their station was in Keswick, behind the old Keswick post office. And then Earlysville was then the next due area. So the local community got together and formed a volunteer fire company. My father being one of the original members of the board of directors that formed that board. Chuck Norford, Charles Norford, was a real big driving factor on that. He was a personal friend of our family, and his children were very instrumental in starting the fire company. Ted Armentrout, who was the founding chief and ended up coming back later in time to help the fire company get back on its feet after it had some problems. That's just community, and it's community coming together to protect the community. With that said, I was when I was 16. Actually, I was in middle school, and in high school, I was a junior volunteer firefighter. And I remember going up there every Wednesday night. It was the brigade meeting. My dad would take me up there, and I was part of the brigade. And it was ride on the fire engine and learn how firefighting techniques. And at that time, a lot of the gear that was up there was just hand-me-down gear from wherever the fire company could procure used equipment, fire the turnout gear, things like that. Of course, I wasn't even 100 pounds or maybe 110 pounds soaking wet, so I'm here and wearing this, the turnout gear. But anyway, it's a lot of experience. It was, again, just teaching, being part of the community, having horse shows, that sort of thing. So, I moved on, went to college, went to work, and then volunteerism, as we know, is suffering big time. A lot of the fraternal clubs have trouble getting members and things like that. And that's just an indication of the times.
A lot of the fraternal clubs, this is a topic I should do for a show. A lot of the fraternal clubs locally, folks, are on the brink of extinction.
Yeah.
They are struggling to get young millennials, Gen Zers, involved with joining the organization. We're talking the Rotaries, the Ruritans, the Eagles. They are struggling to get participation and membership. And without participation and membership dues, there are no clubs of this ilk.
Nope.
And these clubs in the background are putting on events that are part of the fabric of the community. We've talked about this on previous shows. First Night Virginia, the New Year's Eve family-friendly event. And it's so funny doing this show here. I remember I got here in 2000 as a first year at UVA. It was 2000, 2005, 2010. I'm a single man. What I was into now is so different than I'm into now. Then it was about having fun, closing down the watering holes, listening to live music. Now it's about
something to add to that too.
Now I'll throw it to you. Now it's about what can I do with my wife and our boys that aren't tied to closing down the watering holes and maybe blasting our ears next to a live music stage that goes on till midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning because our boys can't do it. And First Night Virginia, the family-friendly event on the downtown mall, was picture perfect for us. It was not booze-centric. It was safe. I mean, I've mentioned the Dogwood Parade. I remember when the Dogwood Parade, it was standing room only on Market Street. Our offices in the Macklin building here, people asked to come into our offices and hang over the balcony so they could watch the parade. We don't have a fireworks show at McIntyre for the 4th of July. The Dogwood Parade's a shadow of its former self. First Night Virginia has evaporated. I mean, you can answer this question way better than me. What is going on?
Well, again, I think as the volunteerism, and people are busy. I mean, it's just the nature of the modern society now. But what I was going to say is, the fraternal organizations really translates into the volunteer fire companies and the rescue squad or whatever that would be, attracting members. And I remember when I was back in the day, and rightly or wrongly, somebody was willing to volunteer and come spend time at a firehouse over the weekend. The training that they're all required to have now is off-putting. It's a lot of rigorous training just to be a volunteer. Now, volunteer fire companies, there are lots of things you can do. They all need help. People helping cleaning the stations, keeping things orderly. But in terms of running on the brigade, it's just so much training that has to be done. And I'm not going to get into politics of that. I do have opinions of that, but I'm not going to get into it. But that has dissuaded people from being able to, because they just don't have the time to do it. So I get that. Where I was going, though, is about when I came back to Charlottesville after my short college career at George Mason, I joined the Charlottesville Admiral JCs. And this was in 1986, 87, and the JCs was absolutely phenomenal. It was a phenomenal organization. Charlottesville Admiral had one of the strongest memberships of any JCs chapters in the state of Virginia. We had monthly meetings, were always dinner meetings, and we were packed. There were 200 people there, men and women, young professionals, so at the time, JC's Junior Chamber of Commerce. And I got involved with that. My father, when he started Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, was in the JCs. The JCs was, again, just one of those fraternal organizations in the community that was very strong, that just went out and did wonderful projects and programs to help people in need and that. Well, it's gone. But you talked about the fireworks. Well, the JCs, for years and years and years, we were the sponsor of the annual fireworks display. And I remember we all looked forward to, because we all volunteered to help set the fireworks off. Well, nowadays, I think they have to hire companies and to come in and do this stuff specifically. But I remember, us going down to McIntyre Park and the mortars in the ground and setting the things off. It was really cool. So just bygone days, but that's gone.
Neil Williamson, president of the Free Enterprise Forum, shares a book that he suggests the viewers and listeners read on the topic we're covering right now. It's called Bowling Alone. Bowling Alone, The Collapse and Revival of the American Community. Thank you, Neil Williamson, and support the Free Enterprise Forum. So much coming in here for John Vermillion. Ginny Who on Twitter, I would love an entire show on the decline of volunteerism. Those of us who participate with a servant's heart are absolutely getting burnt out. That's from Ginny, who routinely watches and listens to the talk show here. So here's a question for you. You are a leader in the community. You have an institutional business. You're the 2023 Chamber of Commerce Small Business Person of the Year here. We're half as glass full type of people. How do we move the needle in the right direction? What do we do here?
Get the word out. Just have to rally the troops and get the word out. Promoting local businesses. The service that you're providing here today, I think, is well needed and much appreciated. I'd be honest with you, I didn't know who you were until a couple years ago, and I had a customer say, "Do you listen to Jerry Miller's show?" So, who's that? So I tuned in, and the topics that you were bringing attention to and things like that, and it became very, very, very focused on the local community, and we need more of that. Not to the demise of the Daily Progress. I'm sorry, I know this, but the Daily Progress was my number one advertising avenue that I did for years and years. I did so much business with the Daily because it worked. And of course, things change in social media, but that's just a fine example of the legacy media, as well as the local TV news and things like that, just not bringing attention to these things. I don't know what you do.
No, I think it's
100%.
I used to work for the Daily Progress, for Monticello Media, for NBC 29. I know firsthand. When big corporations start buying local media platforms like Lee Enterprises did with the Daily Progress, the man you met in the studio prior to the show, institutions, Jerry Ratcliffe, start getting looked at as a salary on a balance sheet.
I'm sure they showed him the door when they came in. It's like
salary on a balance sheet.
Wonderful friends that I had work there. They were all shown the door.
Yeah. Jace, this comment comes in. The JCs used to put on the soapbox derby locally.
Yes,
Thank
they
you,
did.
Bill,
Yes,
for sharing that. Stephanie says she doesn't recognize the Charlottesville she grew up in anymore.
Yeah.
And that's coming from someone who spent her entire life there. Marnie Harrell, giving you the heart emoji and giving you some props right now on the talk show. Questions are coming in quicker than I can keep up with. We're 56 minutes in. Obviously, we're going to have John back on the show. This is one I promised I would get to, the viewer and listener. Your family owns the Charlottesville Sanitary Supply building.
My mother owns that building.
Your mother does. Multiple folks are asking about what the future is of High Street. Folks are asking about what your thoughts were on that development. Wendell's Land, the old home of the circus, right? Mm-hmm. The floodplain by the Rivanna River, where a friend of the program, Bo Carrington, was going to do housing over there. Mm-hmm. That got kiboshed by much of the neighborhood around High Street. The Cosner family, I think Kim Cosner's calling the shots right now for the Cosner family.
Yeah, absolutely. And
she's a realtor.
She's a realtor, and her father
owned much of High Street.
Owned all of High Street.
Yeah.
It was,
right?
And Mr. Cosner did so much for this community.
So give us the show is yours on High Street. I'm going to keep going here. Flip book of High Street, anywhere you want to go. One of your talents is storytelling and a fantastic memory for history, and I think for seeing into the future a little bit as well.
Well, you asked me that yesterday, and I actually kind of was thinking about it a little bit. I mean, High Street, probably of all the entrance corridors in Charlottesville, is probably still the one that has remained mostly the same for the last that I remember. No new buildings on there. You have Cosner Brothers. You have the AT&T building, which was the old Armory. You have Charlottesville Glass and Mirror. You have Jack and Jill. I mean, just more. I think they're just more old institutional Charlottesville businesses on High Street, especially the lower part of High Street, and it just really has not changed. The traffic is terrible, but that's a double-edged sword for us. We get the visibility. There's a lot of expensive land on High Street. It's owned by generational ownership. You talk Kim Cosner. It really boils down to, unless they condemn it and take it, it's going to boil down to the families that still own that real estate as to what's going to be developed and happen on High Street. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, our building, which we've got one of the larger lots on the High Street.
Massive lot.
With the new zoning the way it is there, we could sell that and develop that piece of property into multi-million-dollar, apartment building, I guess. But I would hate to see it. But then again, I'm a realist. Things
Interesting.
happen.
You don't have to touch this one if you don't want to. Interesting one. Multiple folks asking you about how the politics have changed locally. David Neal giving you props on the program right now. I'm happy to say we're not going to cover that topic if you don't want to. I understand you're a small business owner. It's just something that comes up in the feed.
Well, let me just put it this way. I welcome all people,
Of course.
to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. My heartfelt appreciation for everybody in this community that comes into or calls my business. So as far as the politics are concerned, yes, it has changed a lot, but I'm not going to go down that
Yeah,
road.
perfect. Totally fair. I totally respect that position. What are we missing here? And viewers and listeners, I promise we will ask John Vermillion to come back to the talk show. I apologize we're not going to get to all these questions. An hour flies by when you're having fun.
It's been amazing.
With a man
actually.
that's just an oracle of Charlottesville knowledge. Like and share the show. Let John know you saw him on the program. What are we missing? What should be covered? What did we not cover today from the John Vermillion notebook here? Obviously, we want to get the word out to support Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. His two sons are working in the business. His mother and father started the business. The business is 60 years old. Community members and viewers and listeners of this talk show, if you want to see the icons and institutions in our community survive, it's going to come down to this, and I'm going to be very frank here. It's going to come down to paying a little bit more at a brick and mortar or a locally owned business than what you can potentially find online. And that's just the nature of things. And then you have to understand that if you do this, the money stays within the community with folks employed and living in the community, volunteering in the community, committed to having the same standards, the same spending habits that you may have of keeping it in the community. And that's how the community benefits as a whole. Okay, it's paramount that we do this now more than ever, especially post-COVID, especially with iPhones and smartphones in our hand where you can get things on your fingertips and have them delivered within a couple hours. What are we missing here, John? And will you come back again?
Oh, I'd be happy to come back, and thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's been fun.
It has been. What are we missing? Community, increased sense of community. And with the caveat, the community of Charlottesville is probably, I've lived here all my life. I couldn't really tell you about Richmond or other places, but I do get the sense that community is still alive and well. It just needs a shot in the arm.
All right, very well said. John Vermillion, guys, I promise you we will welcome him back to the program. We will announce well in advance before he comes on the show. I just did 61 minutes without a commercial break, and the time feels like it was 6.5 minutes instead of 61. East High Street, Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. Support the businesses you want to see survive. Keep the business in the community. Judah Wickhauer behind the camera, the Elmer's glue of the show. At 2:30 p.m. in 58 minutes, Nate Kibler's program on the I Love CVille Network with more local content, guys. Content that's focused on championing Charlottesville and Central Virginia. For John Vermillion, for Judah Wickhauer, my name is Jerry Miller, and this is the Tuesday edition of the I Love CVille Show. So long, everybody. John, you were awesome. He's going to let us know when the